Welcome to Bon Jovi Discussions. Today I have my buddy Matt, who was my roommate and partner on the runaway trip. In other words, my brother from another mother, and there ain't no other.
What's up, buddy? I was
Anyway,
gonna say, long time no see.
yeah, but we're looking at 24 hours by now.
Yeah.
Um, Before we get started, for those that are listening, I apologize. My voice is half gone and it's slowly coming back. I don't think it's gonna. I think it's gonna be a few more days before I get my voice fully back. And Matt and I, we just have some really busy days coming up, so I knew I had to get this recorded. So please forgive me. I wanted to get this episode up for everybody because I know a lot of people want to hear about the weekend and the concert. So again, I do apologize. So hopefully you can understand me, Matt. Before we get started, I know this is your first runaway trip, and I just absolutely loved watching you experience this for the first time. You went into this trip excited, happy, and you left happy. So before we get into it, what how did you enjoy it?
Yeah, man, it's funny because I heard several people talk about not having the photo op with John. And I guess, you know, I've had one photo with John in the past from the chili cook-off, but had 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 that not have happened, maybe I'd have felt differently. But I'll be honest with you, because I'd never done a runaway, I didn't care one bit. It didn't bother me that we didn't have a photo op. So, dude, I enjoyed it. I'll be honest with you. I was surprised that, and I was just telling a buddy today, I was surprised that Bon Jovi played as long as what they did. I mean, they played for quite a while before they stopped, took a break. So I was a little surprised by that. But man, I see now what you guys were talking about. It was nice to meet so many different fans and people from all over the world. Definitely made a lot of friendships and
Yeah, you
God,
did. I
dude,
knew you would.
I can't wait already to have another one. I mean,
Yeah,
it was a
I,
lot of fun, man. Definitely worth the money. Definitely.
absolutely. I want to go back to one thing that you said, and it's so true about making friendships. Um,
Yeah.
you make so many friends with all these trips. And for me, it was like a reunion, friends I haven't seen in a few years because really Bon Jovi's been pretty quiet. And man, you were Mr. Popular yourself. You were making friends left and right, and yeah, it was. I think out of these trips, that's probably the best thing of these trips is making the friendships. Because you're
It,
sharing these memories with.
absolutely. No, I completely agree with you, man. It's the friendships definitely go a long way because the concert comes and goes and you have that memory, but the whole weekend, I mean, you had the whole weekend with several people, made new friends, people that you had maybe met before. Um, but man, it was good. It was a lot of fun. I totally enjoyed it. Couldn't wait to do another one, man. It was a good time. Like I said,
And
totally worth the money. I mean, I've read them all the comments too. People like who do they think they are and all this kind of stuff. Totally worth the money.
yeah, it's awesome, buddy. And we will do another one, absolutely. If
Oh,
you
no
let me
doubt.
be your partner again.
Oh, of course, no doubt. Yeah.
Anyway, man, let's get into it. So, a little bit of background for those that are watching, listening. So, this is the first runaway trip that we have had since October of 21. So this was announced a couple months ago, and it seems like the 2 months waiting for this trip after we booked it seemed like it took forever. And of course, the weekend it just flew by like that. But anyway, so this trip was announced in April. It was advertised as a weekend in Nashville, obviously hanging out at JBJ'S Nash, which you guys got to check out. And then it included a concert by the whole band on Saturday night, and some merch. And if you guys are watching on YouTube right now, an autographed photo right here. I gotta get this framed this week. But we'll talk about March here in a few minutes. But so that's what the package included. Also includes some parties too, Friday and Saturday. So anyway, let's get into it, buddy. So Friday we flew in. Friday morning we flew in. I kind of, for those that are watching, I do advise that you fly in the day before. Obviously Matt and I, our flights were just fine, and we're pretty close to Nashville to be able to fly. I flew within an hour. But I know some others that flew in Friday morning. Their planes actually got um was what I'm looking for. Instead of landing it
Diverted.
diverted
Yep.
because of the rain. So people actually the plane had to go to Memphis instead of Nashville, and people were kind of scrambling to get to Nashville. So I always recommend for those that want to go on these trips, fly in the day before just to be safe. Matt, thankfully you and I we were just so yep, so Matt and I we flew in. Um and then some friends picked us up from the airport. And let's talk a little bit outside of the whole Bon Jovi stuff because we had a lot of fun. We went to what was it called? Pancake Pantry.
The Pancake Pantry first thing that morning. Yep.
Yeah,
Food was phenomenal. Cool little spot. I'd never been there before. I had heard about it. But just to go off of what you were saying with the airport, the only thing I will say differently, and everybody's kind of on a time crunch probably, but if I had anything to do over again, I probably would have flown in, yeah, the day before, paid for an extra night, just because the hotel that they put us up in was amazing. It was very
bougie.
comfortable. Yeah, it was. It. I couldn't say enough good things about it. I've been to Nashville, handful of times, and it definitely it definitely was a very nice hotel.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I hope I didn't lose you.
No, 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 no. You're fine.
Okay.
Yeah, so we went to Pancake Pantry, and my throat, the humidity and the heat, because here where I'm at, it's not really too hot yet, and it's kind of cooler but warm. So like Nashville, it was like a whole culture shock for me because not culture shock, whatever, but weather shock, let's call it that. My throat just started to tighten up, and it was like that for the rest of the week. And look at my
Yep.
voice now. But yes, we went to Pancake Pantry, amazing. And then afterwards, we went to Ocean Way Studios where the band recorded Forever in 2020. Obviously, we couldn't go in. They had like 10 cars there, and
Yep.
but we got a picture in front of the sign. Rumor had it that Ed Sheeran was there recording, which is pretty cool. I regret, and I know we didn't have enough time. I wish we had gone to Blackbird Studios, where the band recorded Lost Highway and some different tracks through the years. I wish we had just stopped over there. But so for those that are in Nashville or ever go, stop by those two studios. A lot of Bon Jovi history there.
I'll say one other thing too. I was telling some friends at work today. I went to Nashville, a handful of times before JBJ's opened up, and I am from the South, but I'm not really a country music guy. It's not my cup of tea. So I honestly, I find myself loving Nashville more than I ever have, strictly because I'm a Bon Jovi fan, obviously, but there's a bar there that you can hang out and listen to music that's not country music. So,
Yeah,
not that all of them are, but it's nice to have our own little bar, so to speak,
absolutely.
to listen to music. And then the memorabilia it's everywhere.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely find myself enjoying Nashville more than I ever have.
Yeah, let's get right in because we were all in a hurry to get to JBJ's to hang out for the day.
Yeah.
Well, I guess let me back up because we got to talk about the runaway experience. That's the big focal point for this. So before we got to JBJ's, we checked in on Friday at noon
Yep.
to get check in, get our badges, and I'll show what our badges look like. Um, so you had to wear these at all times at the parties and the event. But the front cover, so those are that are on YouTube. You can see obviously Apple and Spotify listeners. You're watching YouTube, but see how that changes. It's pretty cool. It has the Runaway Tours Heart and Dagger logo, and then the band. And on the back has the band. And I got Phil to sign my badge, and yeah, pretty cool. And then we got some we got an autograph photo that you guys saw a little bit ago. My only thing, I wish it would have been the whole band to sign, like a band photo from Forever. I thought that would have been pretty cool. It's kind
Yep.
of
Yep.
ironic. If you look at the 2025 calendar, the June photo is this photo here.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that was planned But it's still I always love getting another autograph from these trips because it's a keepsake from the event. And then we got some Hampton Water goodies, which I
We
know that
did
you were really excited about.
for sure. The glasses, Jerry, the glasses.
The big glasses.
I I don't know if you have it with you. I don't have mine with me, but the it came with a Yeti cup, like a
Oh
tumbler.
yeah, yeah. I forgot about that. Yeah,
It said Runaway Tours on it, 2025 Nashville. So that was, and it was, it wasn't a cheap knockoff. It was a Yeti. So I thought
yeah,
that was a nice touch.
it is. And I'll give a huge credit to Runaway Tours because that's always considered a special gift. Um, every trip they always give something really cool, whether it's a blanket or a hoodie or a shirt or those Yeti cups. Like you just said, it's really nice quality. And
Yeah, I mean, they
you
easily
know,
could have cheaped out and
oh
bought
yeah,
a cheap knockoff, and
yeah,
so it's nice. It was really
yeah.
nice.
Yeti cups aren't cheap, and then also add on engraving on them, so that was a nice touch. So then after that, obviously we were hanging out with friends left and right, and then eventually we got to JBJ'S Nashville, which you and I we went last year, and it's kind of ironic. We went almost a year, and
Yeah,
I think we went June 12th and 13th, and this trip was June 13th and 14th, so
well,
pretty ironic.
yeah. Well,
Uh,
you and I'd planned on doing a trip to Nashville, just like, hey, just to hang out, and you're like, hey, by the way, it's the 1 year anniversary is like in June. And I'm like, dude, perfect. Let's plan something for that weekend.
yeah,
And I'll be dang if we didn't get a runaway. We didn't know it at the time. So
yeah,
that's pretty incredible.
that is, and so obviously we loved JBJ's Nashville last. There was obviously it was only open for a few days at the time, so there was more to add. But from what we already saw, there was like hundreds of photos of the band on each floor, and uh, just so many cool stuff.
And
Obviously,
they added new photos. I mean, that was
yeah,
I enjoyed the photos that they added from like I guess opening weekend or something like that. So
yeah,
that was really cool.
yeah, and there's a lot of other memorabilia for the last 40 years that are on each floor. David, the funny thing is, if you look at a lot of the posters throughout the building, on all 5 floors, you'll notice that David just randomly, because David's there a lot, David Bryan, and he like signs almost a lot of photos. I think that's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so so if you guys haven't been there since opening week, you got to go back because there's a lot more cool memorabilia. They added a photo booth, which I have a lot of friends and we all took photos in the photo booth. Matt, that makes me forget. You and I didn't get our little photo in the photo
We
booth.
didn't. We didn't.
But anyway, here's mine. I don't want to show the ones with friends because it's privacy, but I did the photos by myself. So it's pretty cool. You have like all these Bon Jovi posters in the background, and so that was pretty cool. The photo booth was a nice touch. They also added a tattoo shop on the third floor. I kept telling Matt that he should get Bon Jovi tattooed on his neck. He wouldn't do it. And then there was on the fourth floor, we got the bull ride. So you could get on this bull ride and see how long you last. I didn't try it because I knew that I would probably fly off within 2 seconds and make a fool of myself. So
Dude,
Matt
I
wasn't going to
wa-
try it either.
I watched a few people do it. And I thought, "Oh, I could do that." And then I saw one guy get on there and I'm like, dude, my shoulder hurts just watching him. So
Yeah. Well, that was a
I'm
cool
too old for that.
that was a cool thing too because there's bars on almost each floor. And they have a screen of the bull ride, so you can watch people on any floor doing the bull ride, and that's pretty cool. There was one guy, he lasted for like 30 seconds, and that
Dude,
was
yeah. I was
man.
shocked.
Yeah. So pretty much we hung out at JBJ's all day. Um, I know we all sat together and had some lunch. Um, I had the JBJ chicken club sandwich with fries. That was good. You had the nachos, right?
I had the chicken nachos. They were pretty good. I wish they would add like a steak nacho. I love steak nachos.
Yeah.
The chicken wasn't bad, but I prefer steak. But
Yeah.
and then I think we had the cheese curds. The cheese curds were phenomenal, I thought. And then of course everybody had a little bit of Hampton water. So
That's right. Yeah, that's so you can get the obviously the Hampton waters there, the regular, and then the bubbly. We had the bubbly. Me personally, I like the original a little better, just because I think the bubbly is a little more carbonated, obviously, and I'm not big into carbonation. But um, yeah. So then we had the 6 o'clock party. They had the fourth floor closed off for just the runaway people, and there's a lot of freaking cool memorabilia on the fourth floor. I remember last year, you and I, we got a private tour of it last year. When there's a lot of people inside, it's hard to kind of look at everything.
Yeah.
Because I think it's one of the smaller floors of the building, if you ask me. But yeah, so we had the party started at 6. And they had some, sometimes they have like buffets at these parties, but this one they just had some. Well, let me correct myself. At this one, they did have some meats and fruits, and then they had some waitresses walking around with the hamburger sliders, I think they call it,
Yep.
and little pieces of chicken wings and stuff like that. So, and then obviously you could get as many drinks as you wanted at the bar at no charge. In
Yep.
addition, and then we had a special guest show up to the party. Who was that special guest?
Phil X.
Yeah, and and a big shout out to Phil. He is literally the coolest rock star, coolest guy out there, in addition to all the other Bon Jovi members. But Phil
Yeah.
personally came to the party to meet with fans and took the entire party from 6 to 8 and hung out with fans. He took photos, signed stuff, he just hung out with everybody. And it was so freaking cool that he did that. I
It
know
really,
that. Go
yeah,
ahead.
man, it really was. I got two photos with Phil and I couldn't be happier. The last photo I took was a little bit blurry, but I'll be honest with you, that was the coolest one of the two. But man, I've seen so many of his videos. I mean, just by watching his videos how cool of a guy he is, but to meet him in person and still get the same vibes was like a dream come true. It was really cool, man. I mean, I told you before, I mean, it to tell you how good this guy is. I said, I'm blown away to think, and I'm probably going to catch some heat over this, but I know Richie Sambora was incredible, but it blows my mind to think that Richie could be better than Phil X because he's that good of a guitarist. He really is. And anyway,
Yeah.
a better guy. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
He's a great guy and spent time with the fans all weekend. I mean, just wasn't just at the welcome party; it was all weekend.
Yeah, he kept popping in and saying hi to everybody. And I'll tell you this, he did not rush any single fan. He took
No, he
enough time
didn't.
for everybody to say hi, how are you? Hey, good to see you. Sign in whatever they wanted. It just the coolest guy. So yeah, so we got to meet Phil and say hi and got our photo, got my lanyard signed by him. And I just thought of it like that because I didn't have anything to get signed. And I was like, sign my lanyard, I guess. So anyway, so we did the party for a little bit. I think about 6 to 7:30 we did.
Yep.
And then we knew Phil X was gonna be the special guest concert that night at JBJ's. And we knew he didn't start till 10. So they had him on the main stage. So we knew that Bad Medicine, the tribute band, was gonna start at 8 o'clock till 10 on that main stage. And so we knew if we wanted to get a good spot for Phil, we had to be there early. So you and I, we got front row. We hung out around 7:30 out on the main stage at 7:30, and we were probably a little off to the left. And we stood our ground. We stood there until midnight almost.
Yeah.
But so let's talk about the Bad Medicine show. So you guys that are listening are gonna get a laugh out of this. So the tribute band was great. And so the stage, so there's 5 floors to this JBJ's Nash. And each floor, well, I think floor 1 and 2, the stage builds up to floor 2. I can't make it make sense right now, but
It
so you
does.
have
Yeah.
so pretty much you have 5 steps that gets to floor 2 on the stage. And so the main stage is on floor 1, and you could probably 3 people could probably stand up. It's very tiny. So you have 2 monitors, you have a mic stand, and then you have and forget I think his name is Steve, the lead singer, great guy. Um, so he performed, and Matt and I we were like center of the stage almost, and he he was barely at the mic stand, just kind of going back and forth on the stand. And I don't know if I obviously I don't think he realized it, but he kept going in front of you and I, and his crotch was like level with our eyes and faces. And every single time that happened, and I think it happened 200 times, you and I kept turning our heads,
Right.
and do whatever we possibly could to not have that interaction.
Right.
And,
Exactly.
and like I said, I don't think he realized. So it was pretty awkward for us. Um, but
Yeah.
but joking aside, I thought they did a pretty good job with the show. What do you think of Bad Medicine?
I was honestly surprised. I'll say this: I had watched just a single clip of a YouTube video, and I was like, eh. But
Yeah,
dude, being there, they were good. I mean, I was shocked. I mean, 2 nights in a row. Like, the first night we were super duper close, but they sounded great. And then the second night, I was all the way at the back of the bar, and they sounded good back there. So
yeah,
the YouTube clip definitely did not do justice for him. The guy was
yeah,
super energetic. I mean, we the first night you could definitely see uh, the intensity. I mean, he was sweating like it was 110 degrees up there, but
yeah.
he put in a bunch of energy into it. I mean, dude, I would say I don't remember, but I'd say he performed like hour and a half nonstop. I mean, it was
Yeah.
so
Well, we saw the set list and they had a lot. They had like 30 songs, but because of they only ended up doing 15 because they had to be done by quarter to 10
yeah,
for Phil to set up. And so yeah, so I thought they were great. Like you said, I watched the YouTube video. I'm like, oh god, but they blew it out of the park. They were amazing at the
yeah,
show. One of the highlights for me was watching them do. And one thing that I love about tribute bands is that sometimes they do songs that Bon Jovi never does. And
yep,
one thing that I loved at this show was that they did Never Say Goodbye, an electric version.
yep,
So I thought that was pretty cool. And the set list for both, so they also played Saturday night, and the set lists were different. They played different songs both nights. Um, so let's get into Phil. So right after Bad Medicine ended, Phil set up his own equipment. You saw him coming down the stairs waving at
yeah,
people, and it's
yep.
just setting up his own. He had his own Phil X pedal, his own Gibson guitars set up, and then 10 o'clock he just kind of started. And fuck, I gotta say this. Seeing Phil, so obviously with Bon Jovi, he has to be dialed back because anyone that knows Phil, he is wild, eccentric, and he goes crazy on the guitar. And with Bon Jovi, he has to dial that back a little bit. When he is on his own, like the drills, he is full blown crazy in a good way. And he said during the show that he wished he could have done a drill show at JBJ's, but Dan um, was overseas, so he just did it on his own. And he had what's the bass's name again? Billy Sheehan.
Sounds right.
So yeah, we'll go with that. Great, great guy, great player. So he played bass, and then I forget the drummer's name, but he was awesome as well.
Yeah, all three of them were great. Yeah,
But so Phil did about 5 songs, but each song, like he had like all these like long solos and jam sessions and stuff. And I remember he opened up with Highway to Hell. And
yep.
I'm not kidding you, that whole JBJ's was through the roof. Everybody the place was packed, everyone was jamming, screaming. And I think to see Phil as a front man and letting loose and being full on Phil X was just a highlight for me for this trip, man. You know,
I
it,
agree.
yeah, and it's crazy because there was no other guitar player. It was just him on guitar and him
Yep,
singing.
yep.
And I remember
Dude,
like what oh go ahead, buddy.
no, he knocked it out of the park. I mean, he really did. It's funny because after seeing him live Friday night, I was like, holy cow, man. I mean, this guy's more talented than I thought he was. I mean, he really is. I mean, he's the whole package.
Yeah, he really
Great,
is.
great show. I mean, dude, I'd love to see a drill show now, you know?
Yeah. And it's funny because David Bryan was there, John Shanks was there, and
Everett,
Everett, David
Everett.
Bryan,
Yep.
and Shanks. We were up watching him, and you could just see that they were just in awe of him. And if I were Shanks, I'm sure Shanks was thinking this. Shanks was probably watching him thinking, I found this guy for Bon Jovi in
Dude,
2011. And
that's exactly
that's what,
sorry, not to cut you off, but that's exactly what I was thinking. So where we were standing, Phil X was directly in front of us. And then just on the other side of Phil, up on the second floor, you could see Shanks overlooking Phil X and everybody else that was playing. And I thought that exact thing. I thought, man, I said, I guarantee you, Shanks is up there saying, yeah, I found him. I
yeah,
mean, yeah, the guy was a catch, let me tell you. I mean,
yeah,
I applaud Shanks for that, man. I mean, he did his homework and recommended him to John, and he was right. He absolutely was right.
absolutely. Let's get in. So Felix was amazing. That was one of the highlights of the trip. So let's get, just because we're concerned on time here, let's get
Sure.
into merchandise. So if we skipped that step earlier. So obviously, you know me as a collector, I have to have merch. And last year when we went, they really didn't have merch. So this year, I was like this, and this. And so just overview of some of the merch. They have some Bon Jovi merch that you can get on the band's website, like Forever shirts, the Bon Jovi Forever tank top, muscle shirts. Um, and then they also had like some JBJ Nash exclusive memorabilia. Like they had a hoodie, hoodies, shirts, shot glasses, regular glasses, and so on. So here's a lot of cool merch. I will warn you, you'll go there and want everything. And I'll tell you this now: if you want everything, be prepared for a pretty price sticker on those. It's worth it though. I bought a lot of stuff, and I'm glad I did. Um, so was there any merch that was your favorite that you got?
I bought the JBJ's hoodie that said I think Nashville Bon Jovi Tour Staff 2025.
Yeah,
I actually like that hoodie a lot and did wind up
yeah,
buying it. But yeah, they did. They had some stuff from the Bon Jovi shop um, online, so I thought that was kind of cool.
yeah. Because we went first thing Friday as soon as we got to JBJ's before we check in. We actually got our merch because we knew a lot of the merch was going to sell out because Bon Jovi fans was taking over Nashville, and we're all going to buy merch, so we got our merch. So yeah, so that was Friday. Let's get into Saturday. So we'll skip our whatever we did for the day. We just kind of hung out with friends and stuff. But let's get right into the concert. This is gonna be great. So we Runaway Tours. They arranged a shuttle from the hotel to the venue. Now the venue's not a secret anymore. It was called Music Marathon or something like that.
Marathon Music Works, is that right?
Yeah, I think that's it. So they arranged a shuttle for free for us to get from to and from the hotel to the venue. And so we got on the bus. I thought 4 o'clock was too early. I was like, there's no way we're gonna be sitting there forever. They hit the nail on the head with time because we got on the bus around 4.
Yeah.
By the time everybody got loaded up, and then we got down there, it was 5 or a little after. And then we had to get lined up. You and I, we were smart. We just left our phones at the hotel because no phones were allowed. And let me just touch base on this for a little bit because I know some people, not at the trip, but people online are bitching about it. Let's keep in mind that this is the first Bon Jovi show in 3 years. John has worked tremendously hard to work on his voice and stuff. And to be honest with you, buddy, I'm kind of glad that no phones were allowed because not to get into the concert yet, but this concert really allowed us just to enjoy it. Being able to have no phones, didn't have to worry about getting the photos, getting videos, and we literally just took it all in and enjoyed it.
Yeah, we discussed this before, but for sure it was nice just to enjoy the show.
Yeah,
You know, it would have been nice to have had photos, and that was my only because it was my first runaway. I'm like, are we going to get photos? How's that going to work? And since we've seen a photo that David Bergman took
yeah,
of the audience, and
yeah,
you and I were able to see ourselves in the photo, which is it you know incredible.
yeah,
But agreed. It was nice to just sit there and enjoy Bon Jovi without being distracted.
yeah. Especially because we haven't seen them in 3 years, and I was like, okay, you know what? I'm okay with it because I'm just happy to see them again. Um,
Oh, dude. Yeah,
and
for sure.
and this is pretty much the first time that John has done a concert. Obviously, he's made some surprise appearances and did a song or two, but to do a 2 hour Bon Jovi show, this is the first one. And
Yep.
so I think it made him a little more comfortable right now. Just to say, hey, let's just have the band, the fans, and just play, and no phones, no recording, blah blah blah. And like you said earlier, David Bergman was there. For those that don't know, David Bergman is was the band's photographer for many years. He started with the Obama's inauguration with John's performance. Did photographs at the Circle tour, the What About Now tour, Rock Hall, this house tour. He's been with Luke Combs since. David Bergman is just awesome. If you ever get time to talk to him, man, he has got so many great stories. He's down to earth, and his work speaks for itself. So many legendary photographs that he's taken.
Yeah.
So
Well,
he
yeah, and
was,
he now he tours with Luke Combs, which is a
yeah,
country artist. So yeah.
yeah. So he was there, and so we were really happy that he was photographing the whole. And Bergman was working hard. You saw him in front of the stage, side of the stage, behind the stage, and you see him getting all these cool shots, and it's just awesome. So anyway, so you and I we left our phones at the hotel. Get there, we line up. Now you have to line up, and I like this. So what they do for you to get a good seat, they line you up by when you order. So if you ordered at right at when it went on sale, and depending on when you checked out, you were order number one, two, three, four, five. So depending on how quickly you ordered, that's how much closer you were for the show. And they do this at all the Runaway events. And you and I, we were number 59, and I we checked out like 5 minutes after.
Yeah.
Um, but so they lined us up, and we had to. It was like lining up kids in kindergarten. It was terrible. People weren't listening to the staff, and they thought they could just stand
Yep.
wherever they want. Like, no, you have to line up by number. You and I, it took what 2 seconds to find number 58 and
Yep.
60, and we were in line, But like I said, it's like watching kindergartners get lined up for the day. It was crazy, full grown adults. So, but so then as you went in, they checked you for you had to give your phone, they put it in a yonder pouch, and then you can't open that up until they unlock it for you after the show. So you and I were like, yeah, we didn't take it. So they bring you in, and at this station, I was like, that's too easy. There's no way that you can just tell me you didn't bring your phone. They're not gonna check it. Well, sure enough, you go in and they have the a security thing where it detects metals and stuff. So that's where they would have got you. But we got into a problem, got lined up. Um, then we got in, and we got to see Obi as we're coming in, and Obi made a I wore my Bon Jovi Forever jacket all weekend, and Obi's always the coolest. If you ever get to meet Obi, he'll tell you so many Jovi stories through the years. It's crazy. But he had complimented my jacket. And what did he say? He said, that jacket is so cool. I don't even have one yet, or something like that. But we were in line, and we had to we were getting shuffled by the Runaway staff, so we had to get seated. But but you and I mean, like this venue. Let's speak for the venue isn't that big. It is no matter where you were in this venue, you'd have a good spot. And I think there's about 400 people total for this event. Um, so it was a pretty intimate concert. But you and I, thankfully, we got third row center to John's left, and that's an amazing, like literally just a few feet away from him.
Oh yeah.
Um, so yeah, by the time we got seated, it was about 5:30, quarter to six. I got up and got us some waters, and a friend her water. Um, and then so we by the time I sat down, the show was just started, and like there was like no intro or anything. It was just the band just the lights went on, and the band just walked out. And I think John was like the second guy. Usually the band will do like a
Yep.
build up, and then John comes out. But I think what was it? Hugh was the first one to come out, then John, and the place just screamed. And
Yeah.
before we're going to talk about the set list and go through some of the songs, but before I do, I kind of want to paint a picture a little bit. I've been to over 70 Bon Jovi shows. Not that that matters, but what I'm trying to say is that this is probably one of my favorite concerts I've ever seen the band. It was just so much fun. it wasn't like a tour. It pretty much seemed like we were watching them perform.
Like in
Um,
their in your backyard. You know,
in
that's
your
what it felt
backyard,
like.
and like they were just rehearse, like they were like we were watching them rehearse and just
Yeah.
doing songs and stuff. And I tell you what, this band's chemistry, it is unmatched. I'm watching all of them, and you could tell how happy John was and how happy the band was just to be back on that stage. And they're all making
Yeah.
jokes with each
Yep.
other. And, I just thought it was so cool. And so it kind of goes back to the whole phone thing. I didn't care that there weren't any phones. I was just happy to be there. Um, so let's talk about the set list. Let me pull it. I had
Yeah.
it up and it took it from
Well,
me.
while you're doing that, I'll say this, and you and I kind of talked about it earlier today, but man, I was surprised that they played as many songs in a row before they took a break. You know, I expected like play a song, answer a question, play a song, answer a question, something along those lines, you know, a little more low key, but I don't know how long they performed like hard on, but I would say what a half an hour before stopping at all.
Yeah,
You know, John likes to talk, so I expected him to perform like a song or two and then stop and talk for a little bit. But
yeah,
man, they went hard for a half an hour, I would say, um, which was to my
yeah,
surprise. So,
yeah,
and then when I say went hard, it was a full electric show. I mean, it
yeah.
was loud. It sounded great. It was a it was a good show, dude. And I'll just second that real quick before you get into the set list. My first Bon Jovi show will probably, even though the memory's kind of faint at this point, it's probably going to be my best memory of Bon Jovi. But this one
Yeah,
I would definitely say is my second favorite, just
yeah,
because of everything the band has been through, everything that John's been through. God, it was so good to see him again.
absolutely, buddy. And I know this is all what a lot of people are wondering right now. How does John sound? These 5 words, I swear to you, John Bon Jovi is back. And we'll get into this in just a second, but let me tell you, he has improved tremendously. He was just so happy. He sounded great. And we'll get into that here in just a second. Um, you know, let's there's some highlights I just want to point out here.
Yeah,
Um, that I posted the other day that John's happiness spread to the band and the fans. He's made so much progress. One of my favorite things. I'm not sure if I want to say this now or when we get into this stuff. So let's get into the news first, and then we'll talk about the
okay,
show. So John didn't do. Let me. I'm making this more complicated than it needs to be. Let's get into the set list first. So the set list was we weren't sure what we're gonna if we're gonna get a forever
right,
album from start to finish or what.
yeah,
But so they opened up with Beautiful Drug, and I've
total shock
heard
for me.
I've heard through the grapevine that they wanted to open up a Beautiful Drug in 22. And I think John has said that in some interviews too. He wanted to open up a Beautiful Drug, but they opened up with Limitless. So it was pretty cool that we got to see Beautiful Drug as a show opener. And the big thing was I remember they the bands just came on stage, started playing their instruments, and then I remember everybody was kind of frantic and just a little nervous. Okay, how's John
Yeah,
going to sound?
yeah,
How's
yeah, yeah.
because we really haven't seen much updates on progress other than
No,
those few videos that we've seen.
right.
And when he let out that, well, that was the first line, tear off that mask. I think is the first line. I remember you and I, especially like you and I, like we turned to each other, grabbed each other by the shoulder, and go, "He's fucking back!" And we had giant smile, and the crowd just roared, and you could tell John was like that made him feel good.
Yeah,
And then I mean, I think the audience cheer was just even louder than the band itself. I mean,
yeah,
it was loud,
yeah.
and so that kind of felt good. Um, and then they did Phil X did an incredible job on the solo. Um, I'm just keeping an eye on time for us, buddy.
Sure.
And then we weren't born to follow. Now, this I have to mention this because it felt so good to let me hear you say yeah, throw your hands up in the air. It felt so good to do that again. Just because I've missed seeing Bon Jovi live, and anyone that's seen a Bon Jovi show, it's very interactive with throwing your hands up in the air and singing back, blah blah blah. But the cool thing that they did with this at the end, when the song usually fades out, they did an extended musical outro. That's for about a minute, and it was pretty cool. Like John built it back up with the drums and the keys. And I've never seen them do that before. They've never done that on a tour. And I thought that was pretty freaking cool. And then I think Phil does it like another solo, and then obviously the song ends. But that was pretty cool, wasn't it?
Yeah, this, I don't know what I expected. I mean, here again, this was my first Runaway, but I thought the set list was pretty dang cool, man. I mean, the only thing I'll say, I wish they'd have done a couple of more songs from Forever,
Yeah,
but uh, it blew me away that they opened with Beautiful Drug for sure. Didn't expect that at all.
yeah,
But the set list was well rounded. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And then they did Lost Highway. That was great. Um, and then they got into Legendary. And like you said, I wish they would have done more songs from Forever. I thought they would have at least done, Live and Proof and
Yeah.
Waves. I was really hoping to see that one.
Well, that,
Walls of Jericho, but the only new song we got was Legendary, and that's okay. I haven't seen Legendary live yet, and so obviously I was happy to see that.
well, that,
And I tell you what, for that being a new song, I
dude,
mean, everyone there are diehard fans,
yeah,
so they're gonna know any song. But the
I can
when
tell you're thinking what I've been thinking for 2 days now. The crowd went crazy when Legendary came on. I mean, singing word for word. Everybody in the crowd was singing Legendary word for word, and it
yeah,
it put a smile on my face, and I know it did John's because it was cool to hear the new music that they've not performed live, and
yeah,
to hear everybody singing it word for word like it'd been around for 30 years. You know?
yeah. I agree with you, buddy. And the chorus, especially, got what I want because I got what I need. Got a fistful of friends that'll stand up for me. And I did you see that one time when John kind of nods to the audience?
Yep.
Got a fistful of friends that'll stand up for me right
Yep.
there. Because by this way, he knew how supportive we were as fans there. So I thought
Yeah.
that was pretty cool. But I love singing along to that.
Me
And
too.
they
I
did.
For
What?
sure. That was my second highlight of the show. We'll get to the next one, but yeah, that was
Yeah.
definitely the second biggest highlight. I think was Legendary for me.
Let me know when we get to your first.
I will.
And then they did Bad Name, Born to Be My Baby, Limitless, and they did the guitar outro that they did on the 22 tour. And that was pretty cool. It's My Life. And then, do you have anything to say with those songs I just mentioned?
Nope.
Okay. So then let's get into prayer. So we
Yep.
weren't sure how long this show was going to last. We knew they
Yep.
were going to play for a while because, for what we paid for the trip, blah, blah, blah. But we didn't know how long John would go with his voice. So they started doing prayer. And if anyone knows the band, they usually do this at least within the last 10, 15 years. Prayer is usually always towards the end of the set list, if not during the encore. And we thought, fuck, this is the last song. And so we thought this was going to be it. But let me tell you, that roof almost blew off the place when they played prayer. It was awesome. Now, this is my favorite part of the show.
Mine too. I know where you're going.
All right. So when John screams "Living on a Prayer" before the solo, he hit those fucking notes, and he probably held the note when he screams "prayer" on that YER part. He held that for what 10 seconds. I haven't seen him hold those notes in so long. He fucking did it. He fucking hit the nail on the head. And I'm not kidding you. Phil went into the solo. You could barely hear the solo because every single fan was screaming, jumping, clapping. It was crazy. And you could tell the whole band was watching the fans and they were all smiling because they saw what John just did and what we just us applauding him. And then when John comes back to the mic stand to say, what's the line? You gotta hold on or ready or not, you live for the fight when it's all that you got. John couldn't even sing or say anything. He
I
was
know,
he was
dude.
choking
I
up and
know.
crying.
Yep.
And he tried to do the chorus and couldn't do the chorus because he was just choking up. and you could
Yep.
see the tears in his eyes and him wiping it, and just saying
And
thank you.
yep.
Go ahead.
No, no. And he was up there like, keep it going, keep it going. You could tell he was loving it as much as we were.
Yeah,
And that was the best part of the night. And, listen, I'm a nobody. I felt so happy for him. I really did. I loved
yeah,
being there, but part of my happiness in being there was feeling so happy for him. You could feel the emotion, you could feel the joy in the room. And I'll be honest with you, man, I didn't expect that during prayer, but to see him get choked up like that, man, was such a cool moment. I'll never forget it.
absolutely, man. That was the highlight for me. Just
It was me too. Yeah.
and so we thought that was going to be the end of the show, though, and I don't know if that was maybe it was intended to be the end of the show, uh, but they kept going. And actually, I think there was a few other songs after prayer on the set list, and I want to say one quick thing that again I'm trying to keep an eye on our time here. Um, a lot of people like online, they weren't even at the show or bitching about the set list. Oh, they did regular songs. Of course, me as a diehard, I would love deep cuts. But
Yeah.
let's not forget here, John is trying to prepare his voice for a tour, meaning he's got to do the hit. So these are the songs that he's got to work on. Deep tracks are just a bonus. So as much as I'd love to see deep tracks, I understand he's got to work on these hit songs because those are the songs he's definitely got to perform. So then after prayer, John was still choking up. He put on his guitar and we got my favorite song, You Want to Make a Memory. And he kind of choked up a little bit right in the middle. And then obviously when he did the final, You Want to Make a Memory, when he holds that memory note, man, he held that as well. And everybody clapped and screamed for him. And you could still see that pride and him choking up. And I remember after he did that song, he like kept wiping his eyes and just said I think he said thank you for making me feel alive again.
Yeah, dude. It
Um, so
You'd have
he was
had to have been there to understand, how it felt to be there for
yeah,
us. So I can't imagine how he felt.
yeah. John's always been appreciative of fans, but like the documentary, we've never seen him so vulnerable
Right,
talking about his vocal issues.
right.
And I don't think we've ever seen him so appreciative. He was so happy that the fans were happy and there
Yeah.
to lift him up. And then we got Wanted. And then my second highlight of the show was seeing Love's the Only Rule. I haven't seen that song since the Circle tour. And they did a couple times here and there, and then a few times on the 22 tour. So I was really happy. And they also did the whoa, whoa, and and obviously after they do the quiet whoa, and then that build up back into the chorus again. They finish the song, but then John tells David, "Hey, do some more of the keys and let's build it up again." So they did a second chorus outro, which was awesome. I thought that was pretty cool. And then they
Yeah.
did. Oh, but
No, I was just gonna say I love that song. I was glad they performed that one. I remember the first show of the 2022 tour, they played that song, and I said, man, I hope I get to see that. And I went to three shows in 22 and didn't get to see it at all. So
yeah,
I was definitely happy I got to see that the other night.
absolutely. And then they did keep the faith. And I said earlier, the band's energy, their chemistry, it is unmatched. They were just on point with each other. And when they do that jam session, you can tell that's a perfect example. Now, one thing I don't know if you caught on to this, buddy, but so I think on the set list that they had on the stage, I think Faith was actually the last song, and that was the end of the show.
Okay.
But and we didn't know it at the time, but when the band's doing their jam session, I was watching John go off to the side of the stage and tell people,
Yep.
"Hey, grab me another set list." So he had another paper with different songs, and so after Faith, they did a Q&A that gave enough time for the guys to come on, the crew to go on stage and plaster the set list for the band members, so they knew what songs that they might do. So John did a Q&A, and I'll just touch base on this the Q&A real quick. So the first one was about a possible tour, and John pretty much said that this was what the show was about: rehearsing and being in front of fans again and seeing what worked. And he said that he hopes to tour again. They're planning on it. It's just a matter of when. Then the second person, who sure probably came up with a different backup question, asked when he was coming to Vancouver. Well, that kind of falls into the and then so the other big one was about the Forever re-release. So it's no secret that they're re-releasing Forever. And so some a fan asked him about that, and he said that it's done, it's ready to go. He wants to release it to help, well, not to help, but he wants to re-release it when they announce the tour. And some artists that he has included on this, though it's going to be the song that they've recorded, but it'll feature Def Leppard on a song, Bruce Springsteen, Avril Lavigne, Robbie Williams, and more. I'm excited for the Def Leppard and Avril Lavigne version.
Yeah, me
He
too,
didn't
man.
tell us,
Def Leppard's my second favorite band. So
yeah,
when he said Def Leppard, I was like, oh my gosh.
yeah. I was like, fuck yeah. Um, so yes, that was pretty much another friend had asked him about working with um songwriters and stuff, but that was pretty
Yeah.
much the news of the Q&A. He did that for about 5-10 minutes while the band took a little break. And then John didn't have any, he was just like, okay, what song should we hear? I was hearing people name like Runaway and like the hits. And I was expecting a little better. I was expecting some, and I was actually thinking of some deep tracks I was going to scream. Obviously, I was having some voice issues, so I couldn't really scream, but I would have named a bunch of rarities. But so they did This House Is Not For Sale. And at that, let me back up just for a second. So after the Q&A, he's okay, let's do one more. Let's do This House Is Not For Sale. They did it, and then Phil did his incredible guitar extended outro, which was awesome. And then John was like, all right, how about we do one more? What do you guys want? And then they did Have a Nice Day. And then he's like, all right, you know what? Let's do another one. And before he did the next one, he kind of said, I know that, do you guys want me to go or do you want me to stay and perform a few more for you? And obviously we all screamed, hey, stay, stay, stay. And before he started playing Blood on Blood, which was the next one, he said, you know what, guys, I just want to pretty much say thank you for tonight. I haven't been able to play audibles, you know, just play whatever song I wanted because of his vocal issues. And so he was pretty happy that he could just pick whatever song he wanted because it was like the Circle Tour, when they would just do different songs here and there. Um, so these
Well,
last two tours have always been a standard set list with barely an added song.
well, they going back to the Blood on Blood. You know, we talked about this too. I didn't think I'd ever see them do Blood on Blood
Yeah,
again, and the fact that they performed it the other night was pretty special, man. That's one of my
yeah,
favorite Bon Jovi songs, and I was glad that they did that.
yeah, absolutely, man. And that was I love, especially as a show opener, it was great. I'm trying to remember, did John start Blood on Blood with the acoustic intro? Or
I
was it
don't
just the for
I don't
the
I don't remember.
I'm trying to remember. How about we look it up on YouTube? Oh wait, we can't. All right. That's my little joke. Okay. So then the next one was so he's okay, one more, then I gotta go. Because it was 2 hours in and so he's like, let's do I'll Be There For You. Incredible performance. I thought it was pretty
Yeah,
cool because my last Bon Jovi show
yeah.
was in Nashville in 22. They
Their last
finished
Bon
off,
Jovi show was in 2022. Yep.
yeah. So they finished my show with I'll Be There For You.
Yeah.
And then this one, they my right now, as of now, so there's more. My
Yep.
last Bon Jovi show was in Nashville, and they finished it off with "I'll Be There For You." I think that's a great song to finish off the show
Me
with.
too. Me too.
It was,
Yeah.
it was, it was, it was still emotional for me because I remember like me, like I was singing, "I'll Be There For You," and I was putting my finger to the band. Everyone was swaying their hands and stuff.
Yep.
It was great, but overall, buddy, this show made me really happy. I was just so happy to see them again. I didn't want it to end. Just an incredible show, and I can't wait to see them again.
I know.
Overall, what was your take
Gosh,
on the whole
man,
show?
you said it really well. I mean, just to be able to see Bon Jovi perform again was special. I mean, that's what else could I ask for? You know what I
Yeah,
mean? And the
absolutely.
fact that I was there, if they'd have done 5 songs, I'd have been happy. But they
Yeah,
definitely exceeded my expectations. It was so nice to be there. It really
yeah,
was. I wished
absolutely.
everyone could have been there, but it was
Yeah,
nice. It was, I think, the raw emotion of everything that John's been through. seeing him back on stage, having the passion and the the joy that he had while he was on
Yeah,
stage performing. It's really cool to see, man. He was grateful to be there. I can tell you that.
absolutely.
You can say there's artists out there that have gotten into, tons of wealth that, forgotten where they came
Yeah,
from, but I
absolutely.
did not feel that way for 1 second the other night, man. It was a good time. I can't say enough good things about it.
Yeah, because of my wife.
Yeah.
Um,
And I look forward to the next one, man. I
yeah,
definitely I can't wait. It was a good
yeah.
time.
My hopes, John was so appreciative of the fans with us supporting him, and Obi and the crew, they always record the show, so hopefully, I'm sure they probably did because John can listen back
Sure.
on it.
Yeah.
I hope one day that this audio will be out there for everyone to hear because you will be blown away.
Yeah.
So so after the show, we left with big smiles on our faces, hugging each other as friends, and just so happy that what we just saw. They shuttle us back, and obviously we go back to JBJ's to hang out. Obviously, rumor gets
Well, John,
around. We knew John was coming.
yeah,
John
I was
was
gonna say
there.
John kind of touched on it. Somewhere during the show, he's like, "Hey, y'all going back to the bar tonight?"
Yeah,
And everybody's like, "Yeah." So we kind of knew, like, he didn't come out and say, "Hey, I'm going to the bar," but he said, "Hey, y'all going to the bar tonight?" So we all kind of knew, like, "Hey, he's coming." So
yeah, exactly. So we all waited. Obviously, all the fans were there, and it was a jam-packed place.
it was.
And we probably waited for at least 2 hours. We got a bite to eat and stuff. And then obviously we saw security starting to get heavy, and we knew, well, we knew he was coming. So fast forward a little bit. So Phil shows up. He's hanging out with fans, taking photos, blah blah blah. And then John Shanks shows up a little later. And I'll tell you what, I love John Shanks. I love what he's done for the band. He's a great producer, songwriter, guitar player, and just such a nice guy.
Yeah.
I remember he came up, so they had all of us barricaded for John Bon Jovi to show up. So, but John Shanks was actually hanging out like 2 steps away from me, and I was barricaded behind the line. And I asked Shanks, I said, "Hey, can I get a quick photo with you at some point?" And he goes, "Yeah." And he told the lady that was barricading fans to let me out. I came out, and obviously, I think most people know I'm not a threat to. And Shanks had me come over. I took a photo with Shanks, and I told him, I said, "I want to say thank you for all that you do for the band. I think you're a great songwriter, guitar player, blah blah blah." And I think he really appreciated hearing that because
Oh, I'm
people
sure
are
he did.
jerks online and stuff. And
They
Shanks
are.
is just so Shanks is one of the nicest guys you can meet. I met him a few years ago, and he told me some really fun stories about recording Burning Bridges because I met him in 2017 at this time.
Oh, cool. You
And
have to tell me those later.
yeah, I will. But he's truly the nicest guy. And then obviously I went right back to my spot. And I think a second later, John Bon Jovi walks in and the crowd just screams. And Dorothea immediately went in the elevator and went up to the second floor while John did his thing. So just to touch base on this before we conclude this episode, it got crazy. The thing I wish that fans would do, I get it. I'm a diehard fan myself, and I love watching John come in and stuff like that. But let's do it in a respectful way. The staff or the runaway or the JBJ Nash staff was barricading the fans so they couldn't push through. And they're also nice about, hey, please stay here, please don't push. And I remember Darren, who's a great guy. He helps run the runaway staff and the event and blah blah blah. Great guy. Obviously, when he's in John Bon Jovi security mode, he's on top of it. And he kept telling the staff, if anybody fights you on it, throw them out. Which really, you can't really throw them out right now because John's coming in, and that's what you. But I remember, there was so much space for John to get through. When John Bon Jovi came in, that space became very. Like, it was kind of scary. And Matt Bon Jovi, John's brother, and Matt is just awesome. I can't say enough great things about Matt. And he was in, security mode, and he came in and he made sure John was safe. And I tell you what, as Matt was keeping John safe, John was trying his best to, shake hands, say hi, and kind of get through the hallway to get to the one bar on the first floor. And then John did about 15 minutes worth of, giving shots to people, pouring Hampton water, taking selfies and stuff like that. It was great. And I got to say hi to Matt real quick. And I just I wasn't gonna fight through the. I've already met John many times. I already got photos with John. As much as I would have loved it, that wasn't the right time for me to try to push through the crowd to get to the front of the bar to get a photo. I was like, you know what? Just let people. I just watched. And that was kind of cool for me to do.
I
Um,
got lucky because you were in front of me. So you were kind of as John walked in. Well, I I kind of had gotten shuffled around too. They started. I thought I had a pretty good spot up against the wall, like away from everything. And when security came through, they started like clearing the hallway so he could
yeah,
get in. And I got shuffled all the way back to the bar. And I said, the other bar. There's two bars on the same floor, but I said, well, I know he always goes to the other bar. I thought, well, maybe he'll go to this one. I'll take my chances. So I stepped all the way to the back of the room and I could see John when he came in, just barely enough to catch a photo or a video or whatever, which turned out to be a good thing because I
yeah,
was one of the first ones to see him. The first group of people, I should say. Um, when he started walking into the crowd, I just followed in the same direction because I knew he was going to the other bar.
yeah,
Everybody in the whole room was stopping, taking pictures and videos, and I just slid right through. Nobody got in my way. I
yeah,
pretty much got all the way within two deep of the bar.
yeah,
So I was able to get several good photos and videos from there
yeah,
myself. But yeah, it was
yes,
cool, man. Especially for the people that just randomly showed up that night. I'm sure that was the coolest thing for him to
yeah.
see John Bon Jovi at his own bar. So
Yeah, that was pretty cool to see. As much as I would have loved to have had a selfie with him there, I just knew I wasn't going to fight through the fans to get to the bar. So I just sat there or stood there and watched and was happy with that. And
yeah,
then John left right after with Dorothea. Um, and then just kind of wrap things up. We hung out well, Grandpa here went to bed. I stayed out with friends all night and hung out and chatted Bon Jovi. Then we flew home the next day. I,
yeah. Jerry didn't sleep until Sunday night. I actually slept
yeah,
Saturday night.
well, we got to wrap up here, but Thursday night at like midnight or 1 o'clock, Friday morning, in the morning, 1 a.m., I got up, went to the airport, flew. So I only got like 2, 3 hours of sleep uh, early Friday morning. Friday night, I think I got 2, 3 hours of sleep. And then Saturday night, I only got 10 minutes of sleep. And so I slept. Remember, I slept at the airport gate for about 10 minutes. I slept on the plane, from takeoff to landing. I
Did
slept. That
you?
was an hour and a half. Got into my Jeep in the parking lot, and it was 2 hours to drive home. I had to stop. I stopped 3 times so I could take a 20-minute nap.
Oh
I
my
was getting so
gosh.
tired. I came home, spent a little bit of time with my baby because it was Father's Day, and I feel so terrible, but I was so wiped. I crashed on the couch. My wife made me Father's Day dinner. I got up, had dinner, went back to the couch. I slept from 6 p.m. to 4:30 in the morning because I heard Callie crying and she needs taken care of. So I got up, but I couldn't believe I slept that long. So that's how exhausted I was. All these runaway trips, I'm sleep deprived because I'm so excited and energized, blah blah blah. But overall, buddy, were you happy with this trip?
Oh, no doubt, no doubt, man. I
Yeah,
mean, like I said before, everybody talks about the money. Worth it,
it
worth
is
it,
every single
worth it.
penny because you're gonna want to do more. But anyway, buddy, I appreciate our friendship so much. I was so happy to be able to do this with you, and I can't wait to do more with you. And
Same.
thanks for taking the time to hang out with me all weekend and do this
Absolutely.
podcast episode and many more
Yep.
memories to come, buddy.
Man, I sure hope so. I'm definitely looking forward to it
Yeah. All right, buddy. Thanks again.
later.